All right, everybody, we are back with the second part of our paragraph writing review. Last lesson, we learned the Peel strategy and how you can use it to write a one paragraph response to a question or a writing prompt. This lesson is going to kind of go to the next step on that and kind of, as you can see by the graphic organizer on the screen, we are going to be looking at a multi-paragraph paper, okay? So basically you have the same setup. Each of your body paragraphs, you have 3 body paragraphs here. It has your point, your evidence, your explanation, and your link to the next paragraph. Remember that your evidence is the documented source or the documented information that backs up your point, and you need to make sure you cite the source of your evidence. All right. So let me move that down here. All right. So you have to cite the source. The evidence is the one that you have to worry about citations. The point is going to answer the question. Okay. Or the point is going to help you answer the question. It's your reasons to back, everything else. Reasons to answer the question. Make that smaller a little bit. Oh, I thought it was going to. Oh, well. Reasons to answer the question. And then your explanation ties evidence to point. Now on a multi-paragraph, your link, it says link to the next paragraph. So basically that's your transition phrase, okay? You guys learned in 5th grade whenever you were doing writing, and probably learned a little bit about it at the beginning of the year. Whenever you are transitioning from one point or one paragraph to the next, you need to have some kind of transition there. So this is your close point, transition, next point. All right, so that's what you're doing there. I'm going to move this off to the side so you can see it a little better. Okay, so that's closing this first point and transitioning to the next point. You have the same thing here, and then this one is basically you're closing it all out and transitioning to your conclusion. All right, this middle box on this graphic organizer here, this is where you are going to, in a sentence, you're going to answer the question. All right, answer the question. All right, and it is going to be part of your introduction. Okay, your introductory paragraph. Intro paragraph. Excuse me. Move that up a little bit so y'all can see the text. All right. But that's basically what that is. It's you're answering the question and it's going to be part of your introduction. Remember, you had a Nearpod a few weeks back that tells you how to write an introduction. You could go back and take a look at that if you need help with your writing an introductory paragraph or anything like that. Okay, let me get rid of that and we can look at a quick example. All right, so this is the example that was given with the resource. So we have in the center here, we have our topic sentence, basically our answer to the question. I'm against mandatory school uniforms because it restricts student freedom of expression, does not stop bullying, and does not reduce student discipline problems. All right, so this wording right here, it tells me that that's a claim. So it's an argumentative paragraph. And it is saying what the claim is, and it's giving kind of where the points are going to be. So what they did here was for each topic sentence or for each point, it's in this claim statement. All right. Restrict students' freedom of expression. That's point 1. Does not stop bullying. That's point 2. Does not reduce student discipline. That's point 3. All right. And then once all of those points have been made, then it goes in and discusses the evidence. Okay. Evidence and explanation for each one. This one did not include text citations, but in a regular properly cited paper, there would be evidence here. And it seems like this is more persuasive because they are looking at a personal localized paper that only really applies to their school, is what it looks like to me here. So you guys are typically getting topics that are not quite so personal and close to home. So that kind of evidence has not typically fit. So you guys are going to need to make sure that whenever you get a broad topic or a broad thing like that, you are going to need to get evidence that you will need to cite. All right. And then you have your explanation. So the evidence for the restrict students' freedom of expression. The First Amendment gives every person the freedom of self-expression. That's the evidence that they have. So then for the explanation says uniforms keep students from expressing themselves in their individuality, and it can send a message that looking the same is normal. Okay, so that explains how this First Amendment here and how uniforms are restricting students' freedom of expression, how that ties in. Okay. And then it linking into the next paragraph, mandatory school uniforms can not only restrict individuality, but may also send the wrong message to students. Okay. And then that leads into the next point of it doesn't stop bullying. Okay. And then again, it goes through all of the evidence and explanation. Link to next paragraph. It says will not completely eliminate all bullying from schools. So that actually doesn't really link to the next paragraph per se, but it does close that. It restates the point and it closes it out so that you can go to the next point, which is that the uniforms don't reduce student discipline problems. All right. The evidence here is a, personal experience. All right. Stuff for the students at their middle school have been wearing uniforms for 10 years, and it hasn't really done anything to reduce discipline problems. Explanations, and that's how the evidence ties into not reducing all that. And then again, a link to back to the whole topic of the thing, and it closes out that point before going into the concluding paragraph. Okay. So summarize your evidence details of your writing composition. So that's what they did here. You have, again, the not, well, they made a mistake here having an I believe statement, and they're not supposed to do that. So that is something that you guys need to be aware of, learn by example. That's not supposed to happen. And I'm going to go ahead and That should not be there. All right. School uniforms should not be mandatory for students at Gonzales Middle School. All right. So for these reasons, there, that's really how it should be stated. School, leaving that out. All right. The uniforms prevent students from expressing themselves as evidenced in point 1, takes away freedom of choice. That's the same thing. In addition, do not stop teasing from occurring. That goes in the whole bullying thing. And then school uniforms do not mean that the misbehavior is going to decrease or end. So that goes here. And then it does a call to action. All right. So that is, let me zoom out so you can see the whole thing. That is what that all looks like in practice. Okay. So for you guys, we are going to do something a little bit closer to the topics that we're going to be discussing within Unit 5. Unit 5 is all about exploration, exploring different countries, exploring for different purposes, things like that. So in keeping with the unit that we are going to be going into, we decided to kind of use the American frontier and the Manifest Destiny topic or concept and have y'all write a paper on that. This first selection of reading, it describes 3 different frontier explorations, okay? Starting with after the American colonies started drifting away from European patterns, okay? So the colonies, they didn't want to just remain on the East Coast, mainly due to population increases. They were running out of space. So obviously they had to expand. So they could only expand one way. They went west. So the first frontier is the colonies expanding to the west, probably reaching the Appalachian Mountains, to the base of the Appalachian Mountains. But that is all in here where you can kind of get more details on where exactly they ended that first push west. Then there is a second push west that they did. They crossed over the mountains and went into like Kentucky, Tennessee. The Louisiana Purchase was part of that. There was a push kind of south-ish toward the Red River and all of that. So there's some discussion on there. And then there was the last push to the west, which took them all the way across the Rockies into the West Coast. All right. And it gives you kind of a little bit of information on that. A couple of things on here that I want to clarify for context. Let me see if I can find it. Where was it? It is, okay, so it's talking here about how they were, okay, so it says the frontiers that emerged in the third push or the region faced by the American pioneers in this last advance was different in character from anything that they had met before. And the frontiers that emerged were more varied and more colorful than any earlier environments had produced. Okay, so this is where it's talking about like the grass plains, the dry areas, the Southwest area, California almost area, where your stories of the Wild West came from and your gold rush and all that stuff. It's also talking about the Oregon Trail. If you pick up on the Oregon Trail, it's pioneers going to the Oregon Trail, Northern California, across the Rockies. Talking about group action government, there was a large mass migrations for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Those were the Mormons, the Mormon Trail. Hardships, and it's talking about the tragic outcome of the Donner Party. For context, that was a party of settlers that went across the Rockies, and they ended up losing supplies due to conditions, and they were not prepared for traveling in the cold, harsh conditions traveling over the Rockies. And I believe, if the story is accurate, you're probably going to have to look it up. The Donner Party had resorted to cannibalism. So just for context, that's what it's talking about the tragic outcome of the Donner Party, for those of you that do not know. You can look up information on that on your own if you need more context on things like that. The second reading, characteristics of the first frontiers, it kind of gives a little bit of information on the first and second frontier, but this mainly talks about the three waves or three types of settlers that we're going through. Okay, so it says first came the pioneer, second wave brought half-developed acres. It was half-developed acres, cleared the roads, built houses, frugal, kind of like your farming community. All right. The final wave was men with capital and enterprise. These are your businessmen, your politicians, the professional classes, the writers, the general merchants, things like that. They were the ones that would come in and kind of cultivate it a little bit to become more than just a farming community. It would become more of like a town. All right. So that being said, coming in here is a copy of your articles that you need. For citation purposes, I have gone ahead and I have done the heavy lifting a little bit for you on here. All right. If you download this PowerPoint, it looks a little bit different than that. This is the correct format and look for a online article from Encyclopedia Britannica. It's got the article title, where it came from, when it was written or published. Here's the URL, and then when it was accessed. All right. So for citation purposes, remember you get the first word of the citation, and that is your in-text citation. All right. Coming back here, you have the graphic organizer that I showed you, the empty one, if you would like to use it, or you can do what we did with the regular or with the single paragraph one and use a sheet of notebook paper. And then you have a turn in link here. And then here's your writing prompt. All right. It says, how did the three frontiers affect how the three waves of settlers migrated and settled across the American continent? All right. So these three frontiers that they were discussing in the first reading affected how the waves of settlers that came through each one settle down in each wave, okay, or in each area. How long did they settle down there for? Did they settle there for very long, or was it just temporary and they moved on to the next area to keep up with the growing population, need for space, things like that. Use the Peel writing strategy, and then here is your rubric. Down here is your in-text citations. You need to make sure that you get those done. All right. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact your teacher. Let them know that you need help. Let them know what you need help with so that they're able to help you to the fullest extent of their ability. message, email. If you're face-to-face, come to tutoring. If you're virtual, come to the virtual tutorings, things like that. Reach out to us as much as you can for help. We are here to help you. The due date for this is going to be towards the end of the week. I'll finalize the due date for you guys on the date of passing this out. All right. Y'all have a good one, and I can't wait to see what y'all come up with.